Welcome to Attunement with Courtney O'Keefe. I'm your host, Courtney. Today we have Jill Olenski on the podcast. Jill Olenski is the co-founder of Alama, a market, apothecary, and refillery rooted in clean living, ritual, and sustainability, currently expanding in our town of Glen Ellen, Illinois. A lifelong entrepreneur, former corporate retail merchant, and creative visionary, Jill built her company from the ground up with her business partner, Emily Harrison, guided by intention, integrity, and a deep reverence for beauty, healing, and the planet. She's also a devoted mother of 2 young boys, a sister, a friend, and a woman who has walked through the fire, divorce, grief, ego death, and the shedding of every identity she once performed to be loved. Jill carries both shadow and shimmer. She's not afraid to break patterns or sit with what's uncomfortable or unspoken, because she was born knowing how to read the spaces in between. Her journey is one of reclamation, of voice, power, and worth. She's not here to impress, she's here to remind that beauty can rise from ruin and that you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to be real. Welcome, Jill. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. As some of you may know, Jill was on my last podcast, the Able podcast, and I am really excited to have you on today. I feel like I have seen you go through a few ego deaths now. And
Definitely.
yeah, I want to say I've known you for almost 4 years, but I feel like I've known you a lifetime. And I am really excited to have you on the podcast because when I thought of the solar plexus, I immediately thought of you coming into your personal power. And I'm really excited to get into it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share my story and hopefully it helps other people today.
Can you kick us off by telling us a little bit about your upbringing, like the environment you were raised in, and how it shaped your sense of self-worth?
Absolutely. So I was raised by a single mom for the first about 8-10 years of my life. My stepdad didn't come into my life until I was in second grade. But before then, I was raised by my single mom, and then I have an older brother who's 5 years older than I am. We moved to Glen Ellen, where we both live now, when I was 4. And it was because my mom got sick and needed to be closer to family. My uncle lived here with his family. And so it just made sense to move here so that we could all be close. And that was where I saw such a polarity of just differences within our family that I felt tied to a worth. And we were just completely opposites on the spectrum when it came to financial means and like financial stability. And so much of like my inherent worth from the outside was learned through that experience. Like there was my uncle's family and that set of cousins. There was my brother and my mom was a single parent, and they were financially well off and established in town. And then we were the new people who came in, and it was just completely different. And I didn't have a dad. So then that was the other massive difference compared to everyone else in this very traditional town where, it's traditional families everywhere. And being a single mother in the early 90s was not as common as it is today.
Yeah.
And so my feelings of worthiness then became tied to being the good girl, people pleasing, achievements within my family structure were really important. So not only did my mom have this brother that lived in town, but she has 7 other siblings. There are 9 of them and 27 cousins. So a lot of the time there was a lot of like one upping or just like, oh, this person did this. And so then you're not good if you don't achieve that as well, or something like similar in caliber, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of that kind of just environment growing up of achievement, people pleasing, being the good girl, doing the right thing. And then to not have the dad part of it just like really made me stand out in a way that like I didn't like. So then I really overcompensated in all of those other functions. And that obviously didn't serve me well in the long run because I was continually abandoning myself for others. And
Yeah.
so my worth just was depleted and depleted and depleted throughout my entire upbringing. And I really learned to like read the room and like take on other people's emotions and feelings and just all of their stuff before my own. And
Yeah.
so my worth just like was depleted through all of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Honestly, I don't think we've really talked much about your childhood setting.
Yeah.
While I was listening to that, it almost felt like there was a yin yang imbalance, even. Like, did you feel you had to live in your masculine a lot as a child?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely had to just like achieve for worth,
Yeah.
right? Like, so that is just like that drive and that just like focus on what can I do to be of value? Because
Yeah.
that's where my work was, right? Like, if I am not bringing something to the table, then like I must not be important and worthy of love,
Mm.
mainly. Um, and it was just like without my dad present too, I think in subconsciously, I was always trying to do things to get attention
Mm.
for that extra love that I was missing.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that at the
Yeah.
time when I was a child.
Yeah, totally. And that kind of lends into my next point here. Like, before we're going to talk about your process of divorce and how that really you came into yourself. How did your family dynamic setup look like when it comes to your self-worth prior to divorce?
So my family dynamic when I was pre kids was different, post kids.
Mhm.
Um, and so much of it like happened really like after having kids, and just who I was in that role of the family was the caretaker, the nurturer, the one that was holding it all together in the
Yeah.
structure. Um and all that like emotional load. And that was like my primary role within our family structure. And I had previous to kids had this really great career. I worked in corporate retail. I went to college. That's what my degree is in. And I worked at big corporations. The last one that I came off of was the Walt Disney Company in consumer products. And so much of that was like my identity within my family unit of my husband and I and our two dogs. And then when I became a mother, we moved back here to Glen Ellen from Los
Mhm.
Angeles. And that part of me like didn't exist anymore. I was like, I left my corporate career and it became solely being the mother, the nurturer, the caretaker of it all. And I was like, I don't know this role. Like what there's no achievement here that
Mhm.
I'm like
Mm.
can see visibly,
Yeah.
right? And then my husband was traveling 4 days a week, so he didn't see everything that I was carrying, that I was dealing with, that I was holding. So I just felt pretty much invisible. Like
Yeah.
where's your worth? Like who are you now? Like what does this mean for you as a person? Because I knew that I wasn't just a mom, right? Like
Yeah.
and the funny thing is like I wanted that so much, like just to be the stay-at-home mom until I had it.
Mm.
And then it was like, wow, I just worked so hard to just be this, but like I'm not finding myself there either.
Mm.
And kind of like none of it was fulfilling. None of it was like hitting my worthiness bucket
Yeah.
really in any way. Uh, and that really eats away at you over
Oh
time.
my God, yeah. Well, and not only did you like become a mom in that moment, you moved. Like, that is a
Yeah.
huge change. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it was so much too of like coming back to this town where I grew up and had a completely different experience and getting to relive it for my own child how I wanted to live it when I
Mm.
was a child. And have it be like this picture perfect story of the pink house on Main Street in Glen Ellen, and you have the picture perfect life that you worked so hard for, and you are empty. You're like,
Yeah.
wait, I have everything that I wanted or I thought I wanted, and I guess my worth doesn't lie there either, right?
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is a side point, but I feel like today also society or like the powers that be promote like this trad wife thing a lot lately. And
Yes.
it's like mothers are more than just caretakers. And I feel like they're pushing self worth on like taking care of the home. And sure, maybe that's great for some people, but we are
Yeah.
more than just like caring for children. We're not depleting, we can't deplete all of our energy without filling our own cups.
100%. Like that is such a key point that you make. Like I wanted to talk about that whole thing because like the trad wives is like a really big trend that like society is pushing right now. And it's like, yes, that is great for some people who truly want that, but that's not for a lot of people. Like your
Mm-mm.
fulfillment isn't found within what you do for others. It's found within yourself first, and then it comes out from there.
Yeah.
And how that affects others is dependent upon how you are shining from within.
I'm sure we'll touch on more of that later, but another question about you moving back. Did you notice inner child stuff come up when you moved back during that postpartum period?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that it wasn't until I really like started doing the work on myself and kind of peeling back all the layers that that came forward. In the moment, it was just more like focused on all the external stuff, like the
Mm-hmm.
house, your car, how you look,
Yeah.
just what you're achieving
Yeah.
in life. And so it was like I knew that I was trying to create this like picture perfect thing for my son to have, but it wasn't so much recognizing the inner child in those moments
Yeah.
because also I was postpartum dealing with so many other things that like I don't think I had the capacity to fully dive into what that actually would have looked like.
Yeah. And fast forward, were there moments, one moment or a collection of moments that made you realize that things needed to change in your dynamic?
Oh, yeah. So a collection of moments for sure. Um, So, motherhood obviously changed me significantly. I don't know how motherhood, fatherhood, any of it doesn't change you as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So, that, and within that, when I became a mom, it was the year that our current president won his first term. And with that, I ended up finding my voice because I think for when I became a mother, you realize the impact the world can have on not only yourself but your children a lot more. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, that became politically tied.
Mm.
And like, how do our systems affect all of us? Because I'm seeing it like in a bigger way and in a new way. And so I really then ended up finding my voice and gaining my power back through that person being president, being a mom, seeing how it all like impacted things and shaped things in my world. And I found my voice then and would share on social media. And I would trigger a lot of people, including my family that, was in town. I had a lot of moments with my aunt who didn't love the things that I was saying. And
Mm-hmm.
at one point, she told me I was a slap in the face to our family values. And that was like, well, I don't know whose family values you're speaking on behalf
Mm-hmm.
of because those are not my family values. So that was one like spark of change and really like gaining my voice back.
Mm.
And just feeling empowered to share and also like that I am an intelligent person who can share on these topics
Yeah.
because previous to that, I was always told like, well, you don't really know what you're talking about when it comes to politics. And you aren't conservative because you don't get money. And it was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I believe in all this other stuff socially. So, like, yeah, I'm not going to be conservative because of only like money specific reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so it felt really empowering then to be able to like intelligently speak on those topics. So that was like one big, huge shift in
Mm-hmm.
gaining my own like self worth back
Yeah.
there through my voice. And then the death of my dad
Mm.
was in January 2022. And that was a huge catalyst. Probably the most significant, even outside of motherhood, because in that moment, I realized like I didn't have the answers that I needed from him, and I was never going to get them. We had a very estranged relationship our entire life and met once when I was 18, but then I essentially ghosted my dad and tried to apologize later on in life, and it just never worked out. Our relationship really was never going to exist in a way that meant something significant. And his last message to me when I tried to make amends and all of that was, the book was closed many years ago and won't be reopened. I suggest moving on with your life.
Mm.
And so that was in 2018. And then fast forward to his death in January 2022, like he left me nothing
Hmm.
beyond that. And so it was like, okay, well, who am I? If I don't have the answers from him, like I got to go on this like big self discovery to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I had my spiritual awakening. And I leaned into so many different healing modalities: astrology, numerology, human design, mediumship, tarot, oracle cards, the Enneagram, like anything that I could get my hands on to help me understand who I was at my core in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can't outsource that anymore. I realized like that was not tied to anyone. Nobody was giving me that answer. And it was like my dad was that catalyst of like, you have it all within you. You always have. Go find it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I died not leaving you anything because I didn't need to.
Hmm.
You know. And it was really eye opening to go on that journey. And that's kind of what sparked so much of my change and worthiness and finding myself to then say, okay, like I know my worth now
Yeah.
and I don't align with this life that I'm living on paper.
Yeah.
And so now what happens? Yeah. It was just it's a lot of work though.
Oh my God, yeah. I love those examples you just gave because finding your voice is so hard. And the fact that you did that first is so powerful. And I'm sure it was opened up like all the other energy centers for you too, to be able to reflect on those. Not that you probably knew it at the time, but that's really beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah. No, it was good. It felt good to find your voice. It feels so good to find it.
Oh
And
my gosh, it's
I hope that
freeing.
everyone can. Yes, absolutely. It is so free. And there's moments where, like, I definitely, suppress things or silence my voice a little bit more than maybe I should. But I think that's just part of the growth edge and,
Yeah.
working through it all. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those. Could
yeah.
you take us a little bit through the divorce process? You don't have to go through like logistics or anything like that, but more like the energetic transformation, as well as like emotions you may have felt and how that shifted in your relationship with yourself and your voice.
Yeah. So, when I was on this like soul led self discovery and really coming home to myself and realizing that, this life on paper doesn't align anymore with who this person is. I realized like I need to walk away from this marriage. And within this time frame that I was also going through this discovery. I was building my business with my business partner, and I was in the middle of a lawsuit with my husband at the time. He was being sued by a member of my family who he
Mm.
had worked for. And that was all so much at once, too. That was like driving this like force of like, what are we doing here? Like, what needs to shift? Because
Mm.
this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And it was basically to the day that the lawsuit was over that I was out with you, and we had a really crazy night that was very memorable. And that kind of like shifted the perspective of me with divorce, because I had finally like voiced out loud that I wanted a divorce, that
Mm.
it was bound to happen. And I just didn't know the way to go about it, but that it was definitely on the horizon. And to speak that out loud was like a release in its
Mm.
own way, because it was like I know now, like this is what needs to happen. I just don't really know how. And it was like we did have like one really significant large fight that kind of pushed it as well, but then it was ended up being one really small thing. He said um about like he noticed a pair of shoes that were bought in the closet and made a comment about it and was annoyed, and it was like, get a divorce lawyer. And we had thrown divorce around forever. Like it was like the common threat in our fights. Like, fine, let's just get divorced.
Mm.
I never want to do that again, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
terrible way to be in a relationship. And I didn't flinch. I just was like, great, there's my permission slip.
Mm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And it was like the most freeing moment to just be like, oh my God, like I finally said it. Like it's happening. Like we are officially getting divorced. And I knew within every ounce of my soul that that was exactly what I needed. But divorce is so hard. And it is not something, especially when you have kids, to consider, that I would recommend if you don't, need to go through it, and you really can't work through those issues with your person.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah. And what did you learn about your power and patterns you were going through? Could even be more internally than externally patterns that you were going through during that time, during that divorce process.
So, like with my dad stuff, so much of my patterning had developed through like abandonment wounds of him not being in my life. And those abandonment wounds brought up a lot of anxious attachment patterns that I didn't understand until I was really going through the divorce process too. And like how that like showed up in divorce and just with my self-worth, it was very um eye-opening, to say the least, of like, okay, now you're truly by yourself, and you're not abandoned though. Like
Yeah.
you're totally good, and you don't need external validation through another person to love yourself, to be whole, to be anything. It's inherent within you. Your worth is inherent, your love is there. It's just you need to honor it and tap into it and not suppress those things anymore. So like those patterns were really like loud, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you are gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a story written inside your conditioning,
Mm.
and it is not the reality of it though. And that pattern is, I think, my most difficult though, that I've had to work through even with a new relationship, is it's triggered again. It's like, how do you always come back to your center, yourself, your wholeness, because that's truly where your worth lies. It's never within any of the external stuff. And your divorce will really bring that out into you because you only have yourself to really depend on.
Yeah. And that's not to make light of the whole process because I know how emotionally draining this has been for you in the
Yeah.
past, and you're in such a good place right now. And talk about a crazy big lesson that you would have never had if you didn't make that jump and like trust in yourself and believe in yourself. It's truly so beautiful to like come home to you. So I commend you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also just like such a big lesson was through finding myself, I started to really uphold my boundaries
Mm,
and to learn when to say no, and that it's okay that like other people might not agree with you or be upset with you. And one of those things was through my business. Like
mm,
I was discouraged from building a business. And that was something that I was not going to falter on. I was like, no, you're not going to tell me that I can't do this because I know that this is
mm,
part of who I am. And this finally feels right for me. And so it was like a boundary for me to say, like, no, like, I don't really care what you have to say.
yeah.
This is about me now, and I'm going to honor this version of me. It doesn't matter how much money or no money this is making because it is feeding my soul. And I know when you put energy into something that is soul led and soul fed, like you are going to find success
Mm,
in that. And that is seen through where we are today. But it also doesn't mean that I don't still feel the like
mm,
edges
yeah.
of, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Are people really going to see me? Because you still have those thoughts. So even though you can like come home to yourself and you can be confident and you can feel worthy, your ego still speaks,
Oh,
right?
for
Like it doesn't,
sure.
you have a million ego deaths in your life, but it still shows up no matter how many of them you have,
Yeah, it's a
because
constant
that
practice.
is also inherent within us.
Yeah. Have you noticed after post divorce, like you are able to follow your dreams more?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like I, when we went to sign the lease for our new shop space, the most freeing moment was almost within that container because I didn't have to ask anybody for permission.
Mm-hmm.
Only person I'd ask for permission was myself. And I was like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no one to have that like secondary voice or whatever. And not to say that I don't miss having someone there to like engage with and really just make me feel like safe in that choice. But it just, I would rather have the freedom to do it on my own
Yeah.
than somebody there to speak to about it.
Totally. What practices do you use currently, like tools or things that helped you in your past while you were going through your spiritual awakening that help your solar plexus space now?
Walking, walking is really big for me. Writing and finding my voice
Mm.
is probably the most healing for like my worth.
Yeah.
And also ego dying because not everything you put out into the world is going to be felt in a way that you hope. And you have to really like put your ego aside and say, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not meant for everybody, but those it's meant for, it will land for. At finding my voice piece, I feel like in the writing piece is probably the most profound practice that I have within this solar plexus healing space. And then just doing simple things like laying in the sun. Like
Mm-hmm.
the sun is so healing for me. And I do that regularly. Like I just love to be outside, be in the sun. Um, that feels really good. And just like finding also, I guess, the silence is okay, like embracing silence. And that's how you hear that inner voice again, which then I use through the writing, and I do that through meditation a lot as well. So like those are my big practices
Yeah.
around like this space.
Yeah. Whenever you start to like doubt yourself and your self-worth, is there like a go-to activity that you have when you get in those moments?
I think just writing, like
Just writing.
I recommend writing to anybody, like journaling, journal your heart out. Get it all out on the paper. Like, what are you feeling? What is in your head needs like an outlet to release, because we all can get trapped in those stories and the mind games, and that isn't necessarily your truth, right? That's like your conditioning. And so when you're able to clearly establish like the story and the conditioning from the truth of your worth, that is where like the real magic happens. So yeah.
Yeah, I 100% back you up. I am a huge advocate for writing and journaling, and if you don't do it, you should be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
What is one thing you feel is the most different about the Jill now than the Jill who had just moved back to Glen Ellen?
A million things. I mean, in so many ways, I'm the same person,
Yeah.
but the real difference is like, one, I have my voice, and it's not that I never had a voice. Like I always had opinions and all of that. Like at work, I was paid for my opinions. To be a merchant, like that's your job, like to be opinionated, right? But finding my voice in real life is such a difference, and really not being afraid to use it, to speak unapologetically and own your own truth, whether or not people like it. So that also then goes into people pleasing. Like I have kind of let go of a lot of that and recognize that not everyone don't like me. And again, totally fine.
Yeah.
I am more active within my body, and it feels good to do that. For exercise for me felt like so much of a chore. And now it's like a way that I ground myself and come home to myself and find my center is through that. And I was just like almost like paralyzed before, in a way that movement and doing those things felt more heavy than like a way to really honor myself. I don't necessarily look for external validation like I did. And that is a massive difference in how I was before, because I was always trying to, again, like impress, achieve, do the things, be the person that, other people thought I should be. And I just kind of do what I want to do. Like, I'm far more free now than I ever was before. And I'm not trapped in my old stories of unworthiness, or that your worthiness is tied to what your life looks like, the house you have, the car you have, the kids, the husband, the dog, whatever it is, like what bag you're carrying. Like my worth isn't tied to those things. It's tied to me feeling happy and whole within my own self. And that is a massive shift in
It's
who
so
I am.
crazy. It's like, it almost feels like Matrix vibes. And then after, I feel like I talked about this on a few other podcasts previously, like you're in this like system, you're stuck in the system. And then once you have this like awakening and coming home, you're like on the playground. And like, how can I have more joy in my life? And we're helping people move to the playground. And I love that you say like the house doesn't matter, the bag doesn't matter, because it's so true. And I think we get so wrapped up in like, okay, what are our neighbors doing? But like really just coming back to yourself is so important. And I love that you made that point.
And I do want to say, like, and it's not that I don't appreciate those things. Hell, I like I love a nice designer bag. My house, you come in and yeah, I'm gonna like naturally have it more like perfectionistic because that's how I am too. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Virgo
I
rising
was just
and
gonna say
that
the
just is
Virgo
like
energy.
yeah, that's I'm very organized and tidy and neat. But so I don't want people to feel like that makes you,
Yes.
bad in any sort of way. It's fine to want those things and like those things, and you still can. It's just your worth is not tied to any of them, and so
Yes.
that's the clear distinction.
It shouldn't be number one. It should be like
Yes.
later in the categories. I totally
Yeah.
agree. I love a designer bag, so I get it. And then to kind of end the conversation, for anyone who is maybe going through a loss of identity or a lack of confidence, what would you like them to take out of this conversation?
Well, first, your worth has always been within you. Like, no one is coming to tell you that you're now worthy. You have been worthy from the day you were born for everything in your life. And that going on a journey of healing and self discovery is going to be incredibly challenging. And it's going to bring up a lot of things that you are going to be uncomfortable dealing with and uncomfortable sitting with and just embracing, but you're not broken because of those things.
Hmm.
Those things make you an amazing person. It's just like it's like when you break glass and you put it all the pieces back together. That's what you're doing in that container of like coming home to yourself, right? And all those then broken pieces put together create this beautiful new version of what was maybe what you thought was broken, but is really not. And it's whole. And it's the glue that puts that all back together is just your soul's essence. And it's the most magical, hard journey you will ever go on, but it is absolutely worth it in every single way.
I love that visual. Thank you. It's giving like you have to experience the deepest shadows to feel the highest of joys.
Absolutely. Like you can't experience the good without knowing the bad. Like it's, they're all there. And good and bad. It just they're both beautiful in their own ways.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And if people want to follow along with your journey and listen to your voice and all the things that you have to share, where can they find you?
Instagram at Aligned Life Jill. I share my voice there plenty. Things about my journey, my family, my life in general. Sometimes we get really deep. Sometimes it's fun and silly and all over the board. Like I have no process or method of how I share. And I just keep things real. I think being real, being your authentic self is the most important thing for anyone, but you can't get there without really knowing yourself. And my dad said this to my mom about me, but I'm going to say it to all of you is that your impact in the world can change people for the better, can make amends to heal old wounds, proceed forward with hope, and that all is never lost if one maintains some faith. Maintain the faith within yourself because you are inherently loved and worthy and beautiful as you are. You are not broken. And that is just the thing that I hope everyone finds within themselves. And I share a lot of that on my page. And you can also find my shop at Shop a la Main is how it looks, but it's, a la Ma, and share all of our lovely wellness and ritual and amazing products on that space on Instagram.
Yes. Their products are amazing. You need to check them out if you have not already. And following Jill on social media is so fun.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for coming on, Jill. I loved this.
You're so welcome. I love this too.
Visit ablealchemy.com to download your free chakra journal and to learn more about Able Alchemy. This is a place where your dreams and reality align through services like tarot and astrology readings, sound bath sessions, and intuitive branding for businesses looking to align with their manifestations and purpose through soul-led studies such as astrology, business energy analysis, and chakra color theory. Follow along with Able Alchemy on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.